IT subject a little simpler, right? In the quickest possible time, let me try and revise all the 5 chapters for you in the easiest possible manner, so that you can watch the video as many number of times as you want before going to the exam in the short time, so that it makes it easy for you to write the exams. Now, one statutory warning before watching this video is you have to be well prepared before watching this, because I'm going to be fast and on point. 2, that is, this is a revision video, so obviously once you are aware of the concept, only then you can make the most of it, right? So let me start off very quickly with chapter number 1. You all know what chapter number 1 is. Chapter number 1 talks about business process management. Business process management. 3 keywords: business, process and management. Business, state of being busy. State of being busy. Then we have something to do with process. Process is a very important definition because the whole chapter revolves around that. Series or a sequence of steps. Process is a series or sequence of steps which converts what? Converting inputs into outputs. That's what process is all about. You know what is management? It's an art of getting things done by the others, art of getting things done by others. So this is what this whole topic is all about: business, process and management. In business process management, we are talking about how an organization with process and without process will work on, right? That could be one of the very important questions in the beginning of this chapter that you see, is the differences that exist between functional organization versus a process organization. A functional organization works in the form of departments, while you have process organizations working in the form of teams. Functional organizations are headed by managers, while each process is headed by somebody called as a process owner, right? So these are the differences. And then of course in functional organization we work everything together. Work happens together, while work is split between teams, and there is cross-functional. Work is cross-functional. So you see, if there is a traditional organization working simply based on functions, it works in the form of departments having managers, and they work together as an entire unit. Then when you talk about a process-oriented organization, it works in the form of teams where there is a process owner and there are cross-functional connections between them, right? So that is the first topic that we are discussing. And then let's move on to the next topic called as process management. What is process management? Guys, this is one of the very important short answer questions asked in the exam in the past. 5 steps are there in process management. Step number 1 is to define the process. Define process. Step number 2 is to map the process. Map process. Step number 3 is performance measurement. Performance measurement. Step number 4 is to standardize this process. Standardize this process. And step number 5, stick to it, follow it. That is called what? Adherence. So what is business, what is process, what is management? That's the introduction. And then we've discussed the difference between a functional organization and a process oriented organization, which is one important part. And then of course the concept of process management. Let me take you through the 9-point definition of what BPA is all about. BPA, the next important definition is business process management's definition. Then we can talk about its principles and practices as the next part of the discussion, right? So we have what is process, what are the differences between functional and traditional, and then we are discussing about what is process management. Then we have, before we go to the definition of business process management, let's talk about the classification. Classification of business processes. Classification of a business process. What is the classification of a business process, guys? We talk about 2 things: organizational and then we have something called as operational. Under organizational and operational, so we have in all 5. The topmost thing that is there for the top level is called the business strategy. A strategy is broken down into a series of goals. Goals are further broken down into organizational business process. Organizational business process. While they are further broken down into operational business process. And then lastly, and the most important thing, where we have implemented business process, where we have implemented business process. So these are the 5 categorization or classification of the business process, right from having a very big business strategy to what we have in terms of the business process, right? Alright, then moving up next is what we have in terms of the 9-point definition called business process management, or BPM as it is. What is the definition of BPM? Let me make it into three parts. So first 3, achievement of organizations, objectives. So achievement organization objectives, how? The question is how? To 3 activities: improvement, through improvement, management, and control. Improvement, management, control. The next question is of what? What are you improving? You're going to improve the essential business processes. Essential business process. Guys, this is a simple definition of BPM: achievement of organization's objectives through improvement, management, and control of essential business process. Right, then let me take you through 2 very important short answer questions after this. What are BPM's principles? BPM principles, and how do you do it? BPM practices. BPM has 4 simple principles. First and foremost, processes are assets. Process are assets. Then you talk about continuous improvement, or you can second one you can say you're talking about consistent delivery of value to customers. And then point number 3, which is talking about continuous improvement in process, because you can't set up a process once and forget it for the rest of the life, right? Continuous improvement in process. And one of the most important points that I put a star for is being use of IT. Now there's nobody who told you that use of IT is compulsory, right? So IT can be used as, or you can simply say IT is an essential enabler. IT is a essential enabler. Nothing is compulsory, guys. IT is only a essential enabler. Right, so those are the 4 BPM principles. As we move on, we talk about BPM's practices. What are BPM practices? BPM practices, you have 9 points to come in, 8 points to cover here. The first 2, let me give you a technique here. I'm going by 2, 2, 1. Then I have 3. Then I have 1. Now what is this logic of 2, 2, 1, 3, 1? 2 points. Who will do this? First, BPM practice. Who has to implement the BPM? Senior management. Senior management has to push this process of BPM, and then they are supposed to appoint process owners. Appoint process owners. This is the first 2 steps. The next technique, remember the next 2 steps is who are the ones who are going to do it. These are the 2 things. Guys, always remember when any process is being implemented, it happens as a top-down approach. Implemented as a top-down approach, implemented as a top-down, or by, let's say, senior management. It's implemented by senior management. But always remember, a work is done by the bottom level, right? So executed by or executed as a bottom-up approach. So you covered 4 points. Who will implement this? Senior management, and they'll appoint process owners. Then it's implemented as a top-down approach and executed as a bottom-up approach. And when you move on, right, you talk about IT. IT can be used as essential enabler. IT can be used as a essential enabler. Then we have 3 points to talk about when it comes to with respect to employees, right? Work collaboratively across departments. Then continuously train workforce. Continuously train your workforce. All the 3 points related to the employees, guys. Then align rewards. You want to give rewards to the employees to make them work much better in the process. Align rewards to performance of employees, right? And then lastly, you can go with both incremental or radical approach. You can go for both an incremental approach or a radical approach, guys. So this is what are the basic points with respect to what is being classified in BPM, the BPM's classification, BPM definition, BPM principles and BPM practices. Let me also in the same frame include something that you will again see in the second chapter, but it's a simple concept right now. I'm going to call it as the BPM life cycle. BPM life cycle. What are the 5 stages in BPM life cycle? BPM life cycle talks about analysis phase, analysis, 2 design, 3 implementation, analysis, design, implementation, 4 run and monitor, and 5 to make the best use of this called as optimization. So make it the best process once you implement it. It's called what? Optimization. So this is exactly what we have in terms of the entire concept of BPM. These are business process, their principles, their practices, and of course the life cycle. Then we have a topic on BPM implementation, guys, where we talk about considering some key factors and why do you have to do it and what you are doing it. Let me take you through one more very important question that comes up in the exam here, are the benefits and risks of BPA. Let me also put it here, the benefits and risks of BPA, right? If I look at the benefits, there are 3 benefits, 1, 2 and 3 benefits, and there are of course 2 risks. Let me talk about those also. 3 benefits here are, of course you will have savings in cost. That's one of the reasons why we do BPA, is to save cost. Then it is all about providing some kind of a customer service, right? And since you are providing that kind of a customer service, it is definitely being automated, so it's much faster when compared to the others, right? So you have faster service to customers, and one another key point that you need to remember is by doing this you will stay ahead in competition. So these are the 3 benefits, guys: savings in cost, staying ahead in competition, and of course faster service to customers. Then the 2 risks that are there, right? Till now we didn't have automation. Now that we have automation, there are a lot of people who might lose jobs. So there is a risk of losing jobs. There's a risk of losing jobs, and on the other side there is a false sense of security. That's it. So that's the frame right now on your screen, which contains all the concepts of what BPM and BPA and its advantages, that is benefits and risks, are all about. There's one small concept called BPM technology, where you can talk about the equation which is called as business process management plus IT, BPM plus IT, which is nothing but BPA. BPA is business process automation plus IT. So let me write that equation here for you. BPA is equal to BPM plus IT, right? So this is what it is. And then we did discuss about value chain analysis in strategic management. If not, let me quickly recap. Your Michael Porter's value chain analysis, classifying the entire set of activities into primary activities and support activities, right? Primary activities are those right from getting the raw material in inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and after sales service. All these are called as what? They are all called as primary activities. Then as we move on, we have support activities in the nature of procurement, technology, infrastructure and human resources, helping us to do these work. Then there is a small concept in connection to this called as value chain automation. Now all that you need to understand is wherever there is value being added, like in what just we classified as Michael Porter's value chain, all those functions will now be automated by the use of IT so as to get much more effect on this, right? So that's what is about BPA, BPM, value chain automation and all that. Let's move on to the next concept which has been asked in the exam twice, which is talking about accounting information systems automation. Let me take you through the 3 points. Accounting information system automation. So we have 3 steps. The 3 steps are collection and storage of data, recording of transactions, and of course one of the most important things in accounting is segregation of duties. You might definitely not want to give one person the complete control because he might end up doing a fraud as such, right? So let's go with the 3 points guys here. What is an accounting system automation? And these are called the 3 functions of accounting information system: collection and storage of information, recording of transaction, collection, storage, recording of transaction, and then of course segregation of duties. Right? How do we segregate duties? Or segregation of duties is important because one person cannot be given the complete control. Then, alright, moving next are the various cycles. BPM cycles, if you see, we have finance cycle, revenue cycle, then we have expenditure cycle, then we have 2 common points, HR cycle and general ledger cycle, and then last but the most important one in this lot, I am putting a star to it, called the data processing cycle. This can come up as a separate short answer guys. Data processing cycle is talking about data input, 4 steps here, data storage, data processing, and of course you have something called as information output. Now a lot of students make a mistake here in the exam, they write data output. A processed form of data is information, so you can never have data as the output, right? So when data is given as input, you have to be very clear in writing the answer saying it as information output. Okay, that is what data processing cycle is all about. That is topic number 8 for you, where we talked about what is accounting information system, the 3 functions, the BPM cycles, and of course the data processing cycle as such. Moving up next, I am taking you to topic number 2, where we are talking about 3 important theories of management. I think we will again discuss this in management, so let me not take a lot of time here, let me keep it very simple, but what is relevant here I will discuss that much. First of which we are talking about 6 sigma. Guys, you know what is 6 sigma? 6 sigma talks about achieving perfection up to 99.99966% of defect free products, right? So that is what we are actually inching for, but that and all is not discussed much here in IT. In IT they just told you from a process, right, how existing process can follow 6 sigma. That is what they discussed in your limited syllabus. We have a technique called what? DMAIC. What is DMAIC guys? D for define, M for measure, A for analyze. What is I? I is the key thing here. Improve. When can you improve something? When it's already in existence. That's why I talked about existing process. Is there a is there a 6 sigma methodology for new process? Yes. We discussed in strategic management DMA DV. Why is it DMA DV? Define, measure, analyze are continuing to be the same. D for define and V for verify. So you will define a process and verify whether it's working. But here it is improve and control any corrective action you need to take. So these 2 are key points guys. DMA continue to remain the same. DMAIC in 6 sigma is define, measure, analyze, improve and control. Then let me move on to the second theory of management, that's called total quality management, where quality is at the prime point of focus, wherein TQM follows something called as a PDCA cycle. What is PDCA cycle guys? P for plan, D for do, C for check, and A for act. First you will plan on what to do, then you will do, right? As such, when you do, you should know whether you got the result or not. So you will plan and then do it. If you get the result, very good. That is what you are doing in checking stage. Plan, do, check. If you got the result, very good. If you didn't get the result, then act upon it. Then again go, again plan, again do. This is a cycle that runs in. The third one is a dramatic transformation concept called business process re-engineering. BPR is all about three things, guys. What are those? Fundamental rethinking, radical redesign, and achieving dramatic improvement. These are the three keywords in BPR. So BPR is all about what? Wiping away all existing process, which is what is called as a clean slate approach. You can find these words, clean slate approach, which means wiping away all the existing process and coming up with absolutely new process. Then the next but the most important question in BPR is about the success factors. There are 6 success factors in BPR, guys. First is I need commitment from the entire organization wide commitment, right? Organization wide commitment is what I need. Then configuring the entire thing into BPR teams, right? Why do I want to configure the entire thing into BPR teams? Because this entire thing can't be applied once and for all. So I will break them down into teams, and each team will have a maximum of 10 number of people, right? Then all that I need to do here is BPR analysis, step number 3. Then 4, have adequate IT infrastructure. What do you mean by having adequate infrastructure? Guys, now one of the very important points that you need to remember at this juncture is, whenever you are doing a BPR, it is not compulsory for you to have IT into that process. But whenever you are using IT, you need to have adequate IT infrastructure, because in today's generation, improvement itself is about bringing IT into picture, right? Then topic number 5, you have to, this is a big change process, so you have to effectively manage change. And 6, this is not a one-day process, continuous and ongoing. So BPR is an ongoing and continuous improvement process. So that's what we have in the 3 big theories of Six Sigma, TQM and BPR. Fundamental rethinking, radical redesign, dramatic improvement. It's a clean slate approach, and then these 6 are the success factors that you need to focus on. Let me move out so you can see there. So that is what accounting information system and success factors are. One last topic in chapter number 1 is all about mapping systems, which is one of the very important concepts, guys. Mapping system, let me tell you the secret here. One question has always been there in the exam in the last 5 attempts from mapping system. So it's a very simple topic. You know what mapping systems are? It's about putting the right person in the right place by using some of these techniques and then representing it, right? So let me go with the 5 mapping systems. Entity relationship diagrams, where we have 3 symbols to talk about. One being the box, the entity box, where we will talk about the content. Then we have a diamond, where we talk about what is called as a relationship, and then we have an oval, which talks about the attributes. So when you're talking about mapping systems, we have 3 things. All the world entities, all the world items are modeled into entities here. Then diamonds, we have relationships, and then of course ovals we have for attributes. That is what it is all about. So this is what entity relationship diagram is all about, 3 parts. Then we have the DFDs, the data flow diagram. The data flow diagrams talking about 4 parts, 4 components, you can say. The 4 components are, you have a entity, again we have entity, data stores, where we have boxes to represent the data store. then we have a process box, and then of course a data flow, right? So we have entity, data store, process, and of course lastly we have data flow, that is nothing but arrow marks. So this is what data flow is all about. Then we have two types of data flow diagrams. One, then you can say types, two types of DFDs, right? A physical data flow diagram and a logical data flow diagram. The third mapping system is all about flow charts. I hope you know how to draw flow chart, but let me still guide you with just an understanding what is flow chart. Graphical representation of an algorithm. Graphical representation of an algorithm is a flow chart, and we have system flow charts, run flow, program flow charts and all that. So system flow charts, we're talking about system flow charts, and I hope you know the symbols, right? Oval for start or stop, a parallelogram for input box, a rectangle for processing box, then we have a diamond which is the decision box, and a little extended box, this is the print box, and arrow marks, and then the circle being used as a connector. So the symbols of flow chart. Then we have two simple things here, decision trees and then decision tables. Decision trees and decision tables, they talk about, the decision tree is an inverted tree pattern where we have branches. So we have nodes. Nodes are what? Endpoints. Nodes are endpoints. They represent if-then rules. They represent the if-then rules, what is supposed to do and how is supposed to do. If-then rules are represented. If a decision tree, it starts like this, it starts at a point and then it goes with two questions, and from this point it goes to another two, and this point it goes to another two, if yes, no, and then this goes on. This is the pattern of a decision tree. While decision table, like we have four things here, conditions and actions. Under conditions, we have condition entries and condition stubs. Then we have action entries and action stubs, right? Again, a decision table is formed like this: condition 1, condition 2, then we have action 1, action 2, all of which, then it's taken as if condition 1 is true, you have true, false and false, then it's taken as true, false, true and false. Then if condition 1 is proper, we will have the symbol of execute, and then there's nothing here, and then there is nothing here, but in this case you're executing this. So generally this is represented in the form of a table. So this is what are the 5 mapping systems. One question has always been there in the exam, guys, right? So that's what we have in our very first chapter. Let me quickly recap what we did. We talked about business, we talked about process, we talked about management, then we talked about BPM as a whole concept, and then we moved on to discussing what is BPM and how is it implemented, sub concepts in BPM. Then we moved on to BPA, where we discussed about the benefits and risks of BPA. Then in topic number 2, we discussed the 3 theories of Six Sigma, total quality management, and of course business process re-engineering, and this being the last topic where we discuss the mapping systems. I will bring next to you the chapter number 2, where we will be dealing what is IT and what are some of the IT fundamentals. 8 topics in chapter number 2. Let's come back with chapter number 2. Alright, let's continue with chapter number 2 now. Chapter number 2 has 8 topics. Chapter 2, I'm going to take you through all the 8 topics. So like we did in chapter 1, let's go with chapter number 2. Here the first concept that we are dealing with is about the need for information technology. Need for IT. It's a very simple topic. 3 times it's been asked in the exam in the past, so you can simply go. It's a very simple answer. 3 points only. What are the 3 points? Right? Need for IT is that it improves communication capabilities. Communication capabilities. you have data and information management, and last but the most important one, automation of business process, processes. All right, on that note, that's the first topic there, very simple, very easy one. Right, moving on to topic number 2. Topic number 2 talks about the connection between IT and audit. Let me tell you, not much of it is important. There are only 2-3 aspects that we need to concentrate in this topic. So let me also focus only on those. I'm talking about connection between IT and audit. Connection between IT and audit. What is the connection between IT and audit? There are some points that we need to catch up here. We have 3 points to talk about, right? What is so similar between audit and IT is the 3 aspects. The studying of technical aspects, right? First point, you study technical aspects. So in an audit which is between IT and audit, when you consider the fact you have to study technical aspects when it comes to audit, and then use certain unique techniques, and use of audit software. Now these are the 3 concepts, right? What you see right now on screen, the 3 concepts, they are pretty much different when compared to what you see in audit procedures in IT and in audit. So these are the first, the first concept here, difference between audit in IT and manual environment, right? So these are the 3 broad differences that we are actually talking about. Simple points. Then that's all, that's more important. And then you look at one more topic is there in that particular point, the last one, which says there are certain actions that the auditor has to take in terms of what exactly he is to do by using audit software. Let me take you through those 3 points also, right? You can put the heading for that particular point as the auditor's concerns, right? So the other important concept that I'm putting here is auditor's concern, and there are 3 points under which the auditor's concern is categorized. The first of which talks about, right, he has to apply some new criteria. Auditor should apply a new criteria while doing the audit, right? And then use unique techniques, right? Use unique techniques, which we already saw here the same way. Use unique techniques in CIS environment. And his last bothering is about audit software usage again, right? So these are the 3 concern points as well that he needs to focus on. This topic is not much of, having any more content to be discussed. So those 2 concepts you focus, that's more than enough. But coming to topic number 3, which is one of the most important topics in chapter number 2, is all about BPA. Let me quickly help you revise the definition, guys. What is BPA? When we talk about BPA, it's business process automation. What is automation? Automation is all about removing the human element. Removing the human element from existing business process. That's what you call as business process automation. So removing the human element and using a computerized process, that's what is BPA all about. And then the next important concept in BPA is the 8 steps involved in BPA. Though this we are going to discuss these 8 steps once again in the 5th chapter. There you will be talking about how to do these 8 steps. Here we are only going to talk these 8 steps. First of which is what? Why BPA? Second step, the most important one, understanding rules and regulations. Step number 3 talks about documentation of existing process. Alright guys, point number 4 talks about very important point, setting up of objectives and goals. Point number 5 talks about engaging a business process consultant. Point number 6 talks about calculating return on investment or calculating the ROI, which is what tells you whether the project is feasible or not. Then point number 7 talks about what? Development of BPA. Now, you have to do 6 basic steps, then talk about developing BPA and testing BPA or testing or implementing the BPA. Got it, guys? That's the 8 points. Once again, everybody, why BPA? Understanding rules and regulations, documenting, setting of objectives and goals, engaging a business process consultant, calculating the ROI, development of the BPA and testing and training the BPA. That's what BPA is all about. Then moving up, then we have the 3 very important activities that are done in BPA, right? Integration, orchestration and automation. 3 of the activities, I will fit in that as well. So when you come to the 3 activities, we have one is integration, that is bringing different things under the same roof. Orchestration, that is about using different platforms to merge together and bring it together. And of course, automation is all about use of computers, right? And then everybody, I hope from the first chapter we already understood the BPA life cycle, which is given here again. BPA life cycle, which talks about the 5 stages: analysis, design, implementation, run and monitor. I'm writing it again for you: analysis, design, implementation, run and monitor. Only these are given here. The 5th step is not given here. There it's about optimizing. So in this chapter you're talking only about these 4 steps. That's about your topic number 3, BPA and its sub concepts. Clear? And then you have some benefits of BPA being discussed. That's already discussed in the first chapter. So we are continuing with topic number 4, which talks about computing. What is computing, guys? Any goal-oriented activity, which involves the use of or creating computers, which is what is called as, right, computing. The 5 sub-disciplines of computing are 5 sub-disciplines are very important. This has been asked in the exam, right? First of which is called computer science. It's a study of what it is and all that. Computer science. 2, it talks about 2 things, guys. One is about creating computers, which is both hardware and software, called as computer engineering. Then it also talks about only creating software, so that is software engineering. And then I am going to talk about 2 things which you know is information systems and of course our subject information technology. Right, those are the 5 sub-disciplines in computing, guys. That's what is one of the very important concepts in this chapter. Right, before I move to topic number 5, are you clear with all these 4 topics? Just a quick revision or an outlook. Let me move off the screen. So yeah, this is what all the 4 topics are. And then let me now move on to topic number 5, where we will be talking about 3 concepts broadly in topic number 5 of chapter number 2. It talks about emerging technologies, it talks about servers and the different types of servers, and it also talks about the computer architecture. Let me give you in one frame what all that topic is all about. Chalo, right, topic number 5 talks about computing technologies. So topic number 5, computing technologies. We discuss 3 broad concepts: servers, what is a server and what are the various types of servers. That's what we are discussing in this concept, right? Servers, anything that gives you a response. Various types of server that are being discussed here are print server, file server, web servers, right, etc. You have a few types of that's being discussed. I think that is something that you can understand and do it. The second concept that's more important that's being discussed here is the computer architecture. Another concept of computer architecture, we are discussing 3 broad concepts. One is called the instruction set architecture. instruction set architecture, where we are talking about two very important concepts again called as reduced instruction set computing called the RISC and CISC, complex instruction set computing. That is what it is all about. Then the complete arrangement of the entire aspects inside the computer is called the microarchitecture. And then the third part of this discussion talks about system design. System design, where I again have three concepts to be broken down. What are three concepts in system design? Right, it talks about direct memory access, which is called DMA, or it's also called as the CPU offload mechanism, right? And in system design we have buses and controllers, buses and memory controllers, where we are talking about what these buses are and how they are used in the business, right? Then we see about system interconnects and buses. Then the last buses also called buses and let's say system interconnects. And then we have memory controllers. So this is what we have in architectural study of what computers are all about. Then moving ahead, the third topic is all about emerging technologies. Where we are discussing about two concepts, one called the cloud computing, the other one is about mobile computing. There's nothing much to discuss in mobile computing. What is it? We will come back to it. Under cloud computing, we have what is cloud computing. So cloud's definition is very clear, guys. It's the three S's: server plus storage plus software. All this over the internet. That is what is called as cloud. Then we are talking about cloud types. What are the four cloud types? Public clouds, private clouds, hybrid clouds, and then you have community clouds, right? And then moving on, we talk about the service models. Cloud service models are there for you. We are talking about 5 of those: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, then you have software as a service, network as a service, and lastly we have communication as a service, where you have cross-platform applications like Skype and WhatsApp and all those being communication as a service. So those are cloud. Its advantage, disadvantage being again discussed in the 5th chapter, so I think you can go with it. Cloud, the types, the service models. Then coming to mobile computing, you have the concept of components. What are the components of mobile computing? Right, we have 3 components broadly broken down into mobile hardware, mobile software, and communication. Right, how it works? It works on wireless components. And then of course we do talk about what is something to do with the concerns. I want you to focus on that point also. Concerns in mobile computing: security, health hazards. So those are some points that one needs to consider in terms of mobile computing as well, right? So that is what we have in topic number 5, an extensive topic covering servers, computer architectures and emerging technologies, right? Let me move on to topic number 6, which talks about the information system layers. It talks about what? Information system layers. One of the very extensive concepts in this chapter is the information system layers. Let's see how much we can recap very quickly. Information system layers. Alright, we have 6 things to be divided, guys. First of which, let me talk about the computer hardware, software, networks. We have everything. So first, computer hardware. Hardware is again classified into input devices. I am not writing the examples because I believe you know those, right? Then we have processing devices, which I will be discussing, and then of course we do have output devices, which we are again not much bothered with. When it comes to processing, right, we have temporary memory like in registers. Then we have RAM and ROM. We also discuss about another very important short answer questions called virtual memory. Then we have cache memory. And then of course we have secondary storage devices, right, secondary memory. So these are all something where we are supposed to store, and those are all the hardware that maintains processing and storage devices. Then let's talk about what is called as an application software. Because okay, let's say broadly, after hardware, system is classified into software, where we have two parts to talk about, which is called as application software and system software, right? Application software is all about what? Satisfying specific user needs, while in system software, what do we have? We have, this is nothing but the operating system. This is the operating system here. Okay, so that is about computer hardware, application software and system software. Three parts. Then the other three parts you're talking about are, the next part is about networks, very important in connectivity. So there are two types of networks here: connection oriented networks and connectionless networks. So that is connectionless networks. Then we talk about data. Three concepts here: data, what is a database? As we discussed data and database, then we discussed database models. And what are the four models that we are discussing here are the hierarchical model, network model, then we have the relationship database management system, RDBMS, and lastly object oriented database management system, or also shortly called as the OODBMS. Then we have the last set of people called the users, right, where we have programmers, where we have end users, where we have technical specialists. So we have everybody under that, right? So that is what is all about. Topic number 6, one extensive coverage, guys, is only an overview. There's a lot to catch up in this concept. This is one of the extensive concepts in chapter number 2, right? Then topic number 7, I'm quickly marking up here itself. It's called system development life cycle. System development life cycle talks about 5 stages. First one talks about system investigation. Under system investigation, we are doing something called as a feasibility study, for which I have a technique for you. It's called STOLE, S-T-O-L-E. Schedule feasibility, technical feasibility, operational feasibility, legal feasibility and economic feasibility. The 5 points there in the shortcut, right? Schedule feasibility, technical feasibility, operational feasibility, legal feasibility and economic feasibility. So you can keep that in mind. That's once asked in the exam as well. What are the points that you check in feasibility study, or write a short note on feasibility study, can be taken care. After investigation, all that we do is to do system analysis. At the end of this stage, there is a system analysis or requirement documentation prepared. Then system design, where the blueprint is prepared. And then after system design, we have system implementation. And then last step, we have system maintenance, where we talk about preventive, detective and corrective maintenance, right? Schedule maintenance, adaptive maintenance, rescue maintenance. You have the maintenance schedule to be taken care of. That's what system development life cycle or program development life cycle is all about, right? That's it, guys. That's what we have in this chapter. And then of course topic number 8 is one of the very important topics. Definite questions from topic number 8 is about latest technologies. So I don't think I need to discuss on that. You have under latest technologies, you have Bluetooth, you have Wi-Fi, you have laptops, smartphones, PDAs, right? All that basic stuff, and Android. So Wi-Fi, Android, and probably the first one, Bluetooth, right? All those have already been asked in the exam, so the others have very good potential of being asked. So I think you can go with those. Don't miss the last topic in chapter 2. That's one of the very important things, right? That's all we have in chapter number 2. I will now cover chapter number 3 on networks. Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Harish Krishnan. This is video part 2 of the IPCC track going on information technology. This is part 2. We will be now dealing with chapter number 3. I hope you've benefited watching video number 1 where we talked about chapters 1 and 2. Let me go off with chapter number 3 in this video. Chapter number 3 talks about networks. Guys, let me tell you, this is one of the most scoring topics. Networks are very easy, very simple. Limited number of concepts, and of course most of them have appeared in the exam in the past, so that's going to make our stretch a more easy, right? First of which, let me start with what is networks. Networks are what? Networks are collection of computers. Networks are the collection of computers. So, and each endpoint is called node, right? It's a very important point that I'm talking about. Each endpoint is called a node. And why did you really have to start using computer networks is the question. So that's the answer for that is that trends have changed, right? So we have some change trends, and we have 3 things to be changed. Industry trends have changed, technology trends have changed, and of course business application, or you can say business trends, business application trends have also changed, right? So this is about it, the trends and the changes, right? So this is what networks are, and the trends, the reasons why we are starting to use networks. Then going further, it's all about the use of, the structure of a network, before which there's one very important question that's come in the exam in the past, is the need and scope of networks. Need and scope of networks. What about the need and scope of networks? The 5 points to cover and catch up, guys. First of which is called file sharing. File sharing. 2, remote access. File sharing, remote access. And then I think you've heard about something called as fault tolerances. What is fault tolerance? The capability to recover from the accidental data loss, right? So we have fault tolerance. Then we have shared databases. We have shared database. And then of course we also have the last point, which provides internet access. Networks, the very reason why we use networks is because it provides us the internet access. So networks, the trends and the need and scope, this is a very important short answer question. Going up next, let me on this side go completely with one of the very, very important topics in networks called as the telecommunication network structure, or I can say telecommunication network model. Telecommunication network model, one of the very, very important concepts. Let me take you through with the help of a small diagram, guys. Then I'll take you through what the ideology is, right? We have endpoints at every side, right? So this is called what? Terminals. So we have terminals. On either sides, we have terminals. To connect these terminals, I might use 2 channels, communication channels. See, from here, this is terminal 1, this is terminal 2, this is terminal 3. Let me say if I want to connect terminal 1 to terminal 2, I want to use a wire, right? So this particular case, I'm using a wire. So this is a guided media. This is guided media. And then for these wires to connect at the end points, I might need to have some network devices. At the same time, terminal 1 to terminal 3 can also be connected wireless. Since there is no wire, I'm just using a dotted line. I'll say this is unguided. Right. So this is what it is about. And then there are lots of devices that are used in the likes of modem. Like say probably here there might be a router and all that, right? So this is how the network model functions. Let me take you through what are the 5 basic components of a network model. So if somebody tells you or asks you how is a network constructed, so basically the components are: 1, it's about terminals. Then 2, we are talking about telecommunication processes. Telecommunication process, where we have some of the devices called the network interface card, shortly called the NIC, network interface card. Then we have the modulator, demodulator, which could be a very important short answer question at that point. It is called modem. Right, guys, let me give you 2 simple techniques to remember what modem does. I want you to remember 2 keywords called add and dam. Add talks about ADD, that is analog to digital, which is what is called a demodulation. So ADD, DAM is digital to analog, which is called modulation. So DAM. Right, 2 keywords to remember there. So network interface card, modem, then we have something called as a multiplexer, which multiplies the signals, and there is a similar multiplexer on the other side which will split the signals again. And then of course we have something called as inter-network processors, which are in the likes of you can say bridges, repeaters, gateways, switch, router and a hub. So all these are some of those telecommunication processors, right? Then moving up next, we have something to do with the telecommunication channel. Telecommunication channel. In the telecommunication channel we have guided. Under guided we have 3 things: twisted pair of wires, then you have coaxial cable, and then of course we have fiber optics. 3 types of wires. And then we have unguided. Under unguided we have 5 terrestrial microwave. Then we have radio waves, which is covering the largest radio waves. Then we have the smaller ones called microwaves. Then we have the infrared beams or IR. And then lastly we also have something called as communication satellite. Then the 4th component of networks are computers, which are connected at the every end. And of course the 5th component is a network management software. So guys, right from here, this is what the telecommunication network, it's a very important part of your discussion. Terminals or endpoints, then we have all these telecommunication process and internetwork process, guided 3 types of wires, unguided 5 types of unguided medium, then computers, and of course network management software. The network management software, if you look at the functions of network management software. So if you have read the functions of the network management software, there are 4 functions that the network management software works on, right? What are the 4 functions of the network management software is something that we need to understand at this point. These are traffic management, security, traffic management, security, network monitoring, and of course load balancing. Alright guys, that's your first frame. You can quickly have an idea as to what these are in terms of the basic networks. We talk about the definition, we talk about the trends and changes that have come in the network arena, and then the need and scope of networks, and one extensive topic which is talking about the entire telecommunication model, right? I hope this gives you a quick idea of what it is. Let me move aside for a second. You can take a screen of the you can take or watch out the screen. I will move on to the next topic where we will be discussing about the classification of networks, the types of telecommunication networks. I will help you with the next topic once you finish noting this down. Up next are the types of telecommunication networks. We have 4 classifications there again. Right, so I will leave that for you on screen for some time. Right, so you can go with it. In the meanwhile, let me take you through the classification of networks. Go with the classification of networks, guys. Classification of networks. So they are classified into 4 broad branches, where I am talking about area based classification, then I will be talking about function based classification, ownership based classification, then also I am going to talk about the last one being media based classification. Based on area, there is LAN, MAN and WAN. Based on function, there is client server, peer to peer, and of course tier architectures, where we have multi-tier architecture to be famous. And then of course with ownership, we have public, we have private, we have virtual private networks. Then based on media, virtual private network is a very important short answer, guys. Using a public line to communicate and cut it down into a private line and make it behave like a private, but actually it is not private. So you are using a public channel, tunneling it, making it behave like a private. That's what is called a virtual private network. And lastly, we talk about media, again going back to the same things. Guided, also called as bound, and unguided, or you can as well say unbound, wired, unwired, wired, wireless, by whatever name you call. Those are the classification of networks, guys. So that gives you a quick idea of what are the basic things that one needs to concentrate in terms of what is called as networks classification, right? Let me move on, guys. Let me take you through the next topic, where we will be discussing about the topologies, network computing, right? That's very important. Again, let's go with the bigger frame right now. I want everybody to note down this one. This is one of the important pieces of the entire network discussion. So we have 2 broad topics that are being discussed in this. One is about transmission, the other one is about the network structure, right? Let's first discuss the network structure, and then we can go about discussing the entire concept of transmission, right? So under the heading network computing, I am first discussing the concept of network structures. Network structures are something to do with 4 or network structures in this. Your favorite word, topology, is something that could be easy for you to catch up. What are the 4 network structure topologies? You have star topology, bus topology, ring topology, and mesh, right? Star is a server kind of a model, where there is something which is centric and all the other things are connected. Bus is a single wire, where you have multiple connections from the wire. Ring network is like you have things which have a unidirectional connectional flow, where you have mesh, we have all points to be interconnected with each other, right? So it is connected. A fully interconnected mesh is something, you know, that seems to be the order for something like a military application, where each one of them is connected to all the others, right? That's a fully interconnected mesh that you see there, right? All of them being connected to all of the others. So it's the first topic in the network structures and topology. Then comes on the very important topic on the other side, where we're talking about network transmission. Network transmission. What is there in network transmission? If you look at what is there in network transmission, we have transmission technologies, Then we have something to do with the transmission modes, and then we have something to talk about transmission techniques. On the transmission technologies, we are again classifying them into two: serial and parallel. Serial and parallel. Then we have a synchronous and asynchronous. Now serial is one after another, where all the 8 bits follow one after the other, where parallel all the 8 bits travel together. Synchronous, no start and stop bits, while in asynchronous we have start and stop bits. Modes, I hope you know the modes. 3 modes are there, which is what is called a simplex, where there is only one way flow. Then we have half duplex, which is 2-way flow, but only one direction at a time, like a walkie-talkie, right? Half duplex, walkie-talkie is a very good example. And then we have full duplex, where we have like our telephones. Then comes the easiest topic called network transmission techniques, where we will be talking about circuit switching, message switching, and of course we have something called as packet switching. What do you mean by packet switching, guys? Packet is the smallest part of data. Let me give you, it's a very important short answer. Packet switching, each unit in data is called, each unit of the entire part is broken down into a small piece of data called as packets. These packets, each of them have a header information. They travel to the destination in different routes. At the destination, they all reassemble and make the original message. That's how packet switching works. And the last topic in network computing, which is very important, is the open system interconnection model, which is also appearing in your RTP, right? The OSI model, guys, let me give you a quick story, right, as we go on to all the layers. The outermost layer here, the story goes like this, that there is a user who's trying to reach the bottom of the database, where the actual data layer is there, where he is trying and targeting something when it comes to what he wants to actually pull out from the database, right? So he has 7 layers to catch up with. The outermost layer, where he starts doing something, the first of which is called the application layer, layer number 7, application layer. Then we have the 6th layer, one below the other on the application. You start presenting your views, so it is called the presentation layer. And then I'm not writing the word layer all the time, right? So then we have point number 5 or layer number 5, where we are talking about a session beginning, session layer. Then we have the network layer. Then we have 3, where we're talking about a transport layer. 2, where we have the data link layer, and of course lastly, innermost, we have the physical layer, where actually the data is sitting, right? So that's exactly what we are looking at in terms of the OSI model. Alright, a quick correction here. I think this should be number 4, having the transport layer and then the network layer. Yeah, I'm sorry. So transport is like the vehicle, network is like the road on which it travels. So you enter an application, present in it, a session starts, and then it transports from there over the network through the data link layer to reach the physical layer. That's what is the open system interconnection model, right? That's it, guys. That's what we have in the concept of network computing, right? The next concept that we will be seeing is all about network security, but before that, let me leave the screen for you so that you can catch up with it, and then we will catch up with network security. So I hope you got this in. Let's move on to the next topic, where we're talking about network security, network controls, network risks, and network security. Of course, I'm going to take you through the various threats and vulnerabilities that are present, and then what is something that we will do, what are some of the techniques that we can do, and what is network management. We're going to discuss 3 topics here, guys, right, under the concept of network security. So first, let's look at what are some of the threats. Then we will talk about what are some of the vulnerabilities, then we'll look at what is the level of security required. It's an 8-point story, this level of security. And then we will talk about network security techniques. Network security techniques. And lastly, we will be talking about network management. 4 functions are there. We will see who will do what in that, right? So let's start with threats, guys. Threats are broadly classified into 4: structured threats, unstructured threats, structured threats, unstructured threats. Then we have the sources, internal threats, and of course we have external threats. I hope you're making the framework. So that is what network security is all about. And then we are talking about the 4 threats: unstructured threats, structured threats, internal threats, and external threats. Then we are talking about, I'm going to talk about 6 vulnerabilities, where the 6 of these are software bugs. So while writing the program itself, there is something wrong. Software bugs. Then we have something to do with timing windows. Software bugs, timing windows, insecure default configurations. Then you have written programs which are having bad protocols. You are trusting untrustworthy information, trusting untrustworthy information. And lastly, but most importantly, the end user himself without proper training could be a serious source of problem, right? That's it. That's what we have in threats and vulnerabilities, guys. Let's talk about the 8 steps in identifying the level of security. Now the 8 steps are not rocket science. Let me give you a quick and easy way to understand these 8 steps, right? First of which is to understand the objectives, preparing a plan, preparing a project plan. That's what is the basic thing that is supposed to do. Then step number 2 and 3 are together with, asset. One is about asset identification. You should know how much is the asset, what is the asset, and then how much is the asset, asset valuation. Then guys, you have point number 4, 5, 6 to catch up with, all talking about threat. Right? Threat, 3 points with respect to threat. Threat identification, threat probability, what is the chance of that occurring really, threat probability, and then if at all threat becomes real, what is the exposure of the threat. Then point number 7 is a conclusive point, adjustments in controls, adjustment in controls, that means from old controls to new controls, what you are doing, and preparing a report to sort out all these. This is what are the 8 points that you need to catch up in the level of security. Then moving up next, we're talking about network security techniques. Right, before I talk about network security techniques, let me talk about some of the network security protocols. Protocols, we have 4 protocols here. Secured shell, which is called the SSH. Then we have SFTP, secured file transfer protocol. Then we have HTTPS, hypertext transfer protocol, which is secure. We find a lock on all those payment windows and all, you see the HTTPS. And of course, lastly, the SSL, which is nothing but the secured socket layer, which is what are the 4 set of very important protocols that are followed in networking. And then coming to network techniques. We have network techniques, the first of which is called firewall. Then we have something called as site blocking. All blacklisted sites, or where you think that explicit material is published that you don't want your employees to see at the workplace, you can block all those sites. And then you can have message authentication. Every message that is being sent can be checked, authentication. And then of course the last but the most important short answer which has been asked in the exam several times is the IDS, or called as the intrusion detection system. What about the intrusion detection system? We have 4 types of intrusion detection system. Network intrusion detection system called the NID. Host based intrusion detection called the HID. Then NID plus HID, you have a hybrid intrusion detection system. And then of course network node intrusion detection system, which is called the NNID, network node intrusion detection, right? That's it guys, that's what we have in this concept of network security. Of course, network administration management is a small topic that you can run down, where the options of, where the actions of operations, management, maintenance, programming, all those are taken care by somebody called as network administrators, right? So that's what we have in network security, right? So that covers 3 topics of what are the threats, vulnerabilities, what are the level of security involved, what are the protocols, and of course the techniques and management. The last wing of this chapter deals with the internet revolution. Let me take you through the internet revolution now. The internet revolution goes on with 3 concepts of internet, intranet and extranet. Of course, e-commerce being one of the key points. Let me quickly guide you through what those are to sum up this particular chapter, right? The last wing of this chapter deals with the internet revolution. In the internet revolution, we have to discuss 3 topics. First of all, what is called as internet, which is a network across the world, network of networks, interconnected networks, everything, whatever you say. Then we have something to do with intranet. Intranet is purely within the organization, And then we have extranet. Extranet is also restricted, goes outside the organization, but only to select outsiders. That's what is internet, intranet and extranet, the 3 concepts, their values, categorizations, and of course what's the importance, you have a quick look at. Then coming up with one of the important topics that has come in the exam several times is what is the concept of e-commerce. Doing business electronically is called e-commerce, and one of the favorite questions of the examiners at this point have been the types of e-commerce, right? We have business to business, business to customer, customer to business, which is the latest, where we showcase our work on the internet platform, and of course customer to customer in the nature of quicker, OLX and all that, right? And then of course business to government and business to employees. All these are the 6 types of e-commerce to be understood and studied. Then of course e-commerce does have its own share of risk and benefits, which is also included in this topic. And the last topic that you will be seeing in this chapter is about m-commerce, which is doing business using wireless handheld devices, using something called as wireless access protocol, wireless application protocol, WAP, right? And lastly, we have something to do with electronic payments, right? So I think that's pretty simple. Electronic payments, where we are talking about ATM, point of sale terminals, where the swiping machines and all that. And then we have pre-authorized transfers in bank, pre-authorized transfer, and then of course telephonic transfers as well, right? That's it guys, that's what we have in the 3rd chapter. We will continue our discussion with the 4th chapter after you note down this internet revolution. Let's continue with chapter 4 guys. Chapter 4 is about business information systems. So in chapter 4 in business information systems, I hope you know that there are classifications to information systems, right? We have information systems here. Let me keep this chapter short and simple. Let me give you a brief overview of what is there. We have information systems. Then we have something called as specialized systems. Specialized systems, right? Then we also have, after seeing specialized systems, artificial intelligence, the concept of artificial intelligence. We have the concept of artificial intelligence. Under some sub-concepts we'll see those. Another concept of information systems, we have talked about the information systems, right? So what are there under information system? The various levels in the organization. We are supposed to talk about the levels. There are 4 levels, right? The strategic level, the managerial level, and then comes the knowledge level, and of course the operational level. That is where work actually happens, operational level. Now under the strategic level, the systems that are used are the executive information system, the EIS. It goes beyond the boundaries of the company. So we have not just hardware, software and all, it's also connected networks. So telecommunication networks are an important part of the story. Then information systems, a managerial level. At managerial level, we are using systems like the MIS and of course the decision support system. At knowledge level, we are using something called as the knowledge management system, and at operational level, we will be using something called as transaction processing system, and of course we are using something called as the office automation system. These are all the various 6 types of information systems that you're going to use in business to gather information. Let me give you a brief overview of all of these, right? And I will take you through the important topics out of these, right? First of which, let's talk about the TPS. Guys, TPS, let me give you a small shortcut to remember the features of TPS. You remember the keyword called heat, high volume and rapid processing, equivalence, access control, and of course using, right, the TPS, which is trustworthy. So guys, high volume rapid processing, equivalence, access control, and of course trustworthiness. Those are features of TPS, and every system to be called as a TPS should pass the acid test. This question has been asked in the exam in the past, guys. Acid test: atomicity, consistency, isolation, and of course you have durability. So these are some of the tests, some of the points that has to pass through the test for you to get through and call it as a TPS. Then talking about the knowledge management system, so that was TPS. Office automation is about using computers. Then coming to knowledge management, we have 2 types of knowledge, guys. What is called as explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge available in books. Explicit knowledge, you can get these in books. While we are talking about tacit knowledge, very important, and tacit knowledge only comes by way of experience. Right? Management information systems is about MIS, using the 3 concepts of what is management, what is information and system. That's a simple cakewalk. DSS would be a task to catch up with, right? Let me take you through the 4 components of DSS. Under DSS, you have a user. The user uses something called as a planning language. User planning language. Then you have 1 or more databases, and then you have one of the most important concept called as a model base, which talks about, which is the brain of the DSS. So it's all about the information systems, guys. EAS, apart from having hardware, software, it also talks about telecommunication. Why does it talk about telecommunication? Is because it goes beyond the boundaries of the company, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about telecommunication or networks in EAS, because it is used for top executives. It carries both internal and external information. Then moving up next with specialized systems, we have 6 specialized systems, guys. I'm not going to discuss much because I think it's a quick and single read that you can understand all these systems. Enterprise resource planning, ERP, where we have 10 stages. That could be an important question. Then I'm talking about CRM softwares and supply chain management softwares. Then the relation between ERP, CRM and SCM is another important question. Then we are talking about something called as core banking systems, right? And the 3 core banking softwares in the nature of Infosys Finacle, Oracle FlexCube and Nucleus Fin1, they are all discussed in this core banking concept. Then we have HR management systems, and of course last but the most important one from the exam point of view, the accounting information system, and the 6 components of the accounting information system: hardware, software, data, people, processing, and the most important thing here is it comes with internal controls, which is what is the important thing in this 6 specialized systems. Then moving up next, we have the concept of artificial intelligence, which is nothing but what? Replicating human behavior, in computers, which is what is called as artificial intelligence, right? Under which we have 2 concepts to talk about, which is dealing with expert systems. Expert systems are the next level of DSS, high level DSS. So we have a expert who is giving all the information, which is programmed in something called as a knowledge base, and the knowledge base will contain all the information necessary for a novice, a new person, to draw an information and get the opinion like he gets it from a expert system. We have at one end we have user. The user talks it through the user interface, and apart from the user interface we have inference engine, and then they are connecting to the knowledge base, right? On the other side, guys, we have one of the very important concepts in this chapter, which has again come in the exam: business intelligence tools. What are some of the business intelligence tools? I have 5 tools for you. First one is called simple reporting and querying tool. Simple reporting and querying tool uses answers a question called simple reporting and querying tool answers a question called tell me what happened. That means very basic information. Tell me what happened. If you want a little more detail, then you use this one. This is called as business analysis, which is talking about tell me what happened, plus it is also talking about why. Tell me what happened and why. Then we have something called as dashboards. Dashboards are something where we talk about what? Less effort, more information. That is what the logic of dashboards are. And then point number 4, we're talking about something called as scorecards, where we're talking about giving an at a glance perspective. It's going to give us a at a glance perspective. And then the last set of business intelligence tools we have are the data mining tools. Data mining is a concept of extracting or pulling out data from the mining. That's it, guys. From the data warehouses, that's what is called mining, right? So information systems, specialized systems, artificial intelligence, talking about expert system, and the business intelligence tools. Like I said, there is nothing much to deal with in this chapter because each and everything is a straight and simple topic. So I could just give you an overview so that you can run through all the topics. This is just a reminder of all the topics in this chapter. Coming up to one of the most important topics in this chapter, which has been asked in the exam, and the last concept, 3 concepts I'm going to just highlight. I would want you to at this point of time focus on those, called as importance of privilege controls, why you are supposed to give privilege controls, and then role based and rule based systems. Role based is based on position, rule based is based on if and then rules, and lastly we have something called as principles of least privilege. And what's the principle of least privilege? Is to focus and give only those many number of privileges that are essential for somebody to fulfill their job, right? So I hope I could cover all the topics just as a brief overview, and that is what chapter number 4 is, right? That's a single frame for you on chapter number 4. Let me cover chapter number 5. So guys, let's move on to chapter number 5. Chapter number 5, the last chapter. There's nothing much for me to explain in this because it's a very simple chapter as such. It's about a lot of application software, the list of which is given, like, you know, what is the accounting software, what is logistic management software. So I don't find a point in reading out the list of all the softwares once again. It's just a list of softwares. But one of the very important questions in chapter 5 is about why we go about doing BPA, which again talks about those three reasons on savings in cost, right? So those points are back. Why BPA? We talk about benefits and risks. So the benefits of doing and risks are supposed to be taken care of, that, and then how to do BPA, all those 8 steps, right, are discussed again. So I think you want me to recap all the 8 steps that is there in previous video. Okay, chalo, let's do that, right? Why BPA? I think you should be able to do it along with me. Why BPA? Then rules and regulations, talking about documentation, rules, regulations, documentation. Then we have goals and objectives. Point number 5 is engaging a consultant. Point number 6 is talking about calculation of ROI. Calculation of ROI. Point number 7 is developing BPA. And point number 8 is all about implementing the BPA and implementing, testing BPA, right? So that's what it is in 8 steps, and there's a case study given at that point. I want you to go through that case studies also, so that's also something that's important at this point, right? So why BPA? What are the 8 steps in doing BPA is taken care of, and then a list of softwares are given. I don't see a real point in me reading it right now, all that, you know, like you have Tally, SAP, all that. I think you can manage with reading what those are. Let me focus on more important concept. We talk about processing. So when you talk about processing, it's talking about 2 things, guys. It's talking about manual processing, and of course you have automated processing, manual and automated. In manual, you have a very simple idea. We talk about input, we talk about processing, and we talk about output. But when you talk about automated, we are talking about input, we are talking about processing, we are talking about storage as well, and then we are talking about the output, right? So this manual is purely based on human effort, while automated is purely based on computerized effort, right? So that's what it is. So why BPA, how the 8 steps are, what is processing, all that is something that one needs to consider. And then 2 of the very important points are talking about delivery channels, right? Delivery channels. We're talking about delivery channels for products and delivery channels for information, right? So when you talk about delivery channels of products, we have delivery channels of product. How to choose a delivery channel for product? We can deliver the product physically, we can deliver the product online. Same is the case with information. We can deliver the information physically through books and papers, and of course we can deliver it online. So what is the best way, right? There are 2 questions under this concept of delivery channels. It's very important to figure out how to choose a delivery channel. How to choose a delivery channel out of this is a very important question at this juncture. That is what you're supposed to know. And then let me take you through one of the very important topics and extensive topics in this chapter, controls in BPA. Let's cover this in greater detail. Controls in BPA are classified into 2 categories, guys. Managerial controls, and of course we have application controls. Right, I want everybody to catch up with this particular piece. It's a very important thing. Application controls, there are, there's a broader discussion. I will discuss it in the next frame. Right now, we'll talk about managerial controls. There's 7 of those managerial controls, and let me take you through those very quickly. This managerial controls. What are those controls? Top management controls, system development controls, top management controls. Top management controls on planning, ideology and all that. Then system development control, program development control. Then we have systems, program development control, system control, and then we have data administration controls. data administration controls, quality assurance controls, I'm writing sixth one and seventh one here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 controls. What are the managerial controls? And 6 is about security administration, and 7 is about operation management. This is security. 6 is about security administration, and lastly 7 is about operations management. So guys, these are the 7 points we covered under managerial controls. Application controls, I will discuss it in greater depth now, right? So basically YBP and the 8 steps, that could be one of the key points of questioning. This has been asked in the exam earlier, manual and automated process, the differences and all that. Then the delivery channels of products, information, and how to choose a delivery channel, and the most important topic in this chapter being controls, where we are talking about managerial controls and application controls. Then of course the last topic in this chapter again deals about emerging technologies, where you're talking about 3 topics. Emerging technologies, you have virtualization, you have grid computing, and then of course you have back with a little bit of cloud computing here, right? Virtualization is a concept whereby you're using something that's not real to be made real. So under the concept of virtualization, we have hardware virtualization, storage virtualization, and your hotspots and all that, network virtualization. Grid computing is like creating a supercomputer, more than one computer, bringing together the power of each individual computer is tackled together and brought as more than one. And of course cloud computing is something that we've already dealt in the second chapter, right? So let me take you through application controls. That's the only thing that we need to catch up with, because these 3 concepts of virtualization, grid and cloud are important, guys. Questions will come from this quadrant only, only in the sense, this one question can come from this quadrant. And of course let me take you through some of the application controls as well, right? What are some of the application controls? We have boundary controls, input controls, process controls, output controls, database controls. Let's see how those are categorized and what is done. So let me give you that last frame of thoughts on application controls. There could be questions from application controls as well. So let's concentrate on dealing with application controls. So what is it dealing with application controls? Here it's talking about boundary controls first of all. Boundary controls. What are boundary controls? It's talking about access control mechanism, right? So we have cryptography, access control, cryptography, access control. Then we have passwords, digital signatures, password, digital signature. Then I think we have 2 more. We have PIN numbers and ID cards, correct? PIN and ID cards. So these are 6 boundary controls, guys. What is cryptography? The art of encryption, converting plain text into ciphertext. Access controls about identifying and authenticating. Then passwords, you know what a password, digital signature, PIN, ID card. I don't think these need explanation, right? After boundary controls, we have input controls, right? Under input controls, we are dealing 4 of those input controls, where we are taking care of what is called as source data controls. Then we will be discussing data coding controls, source data. Then we have data coding controls, validation controls, and of course if you are entering input in the form of batch, then you have batch controls, right? So that's what we got to do with input controls, guys. We have boundary controls and input controls. Then moving up next, we have the latest introduction to this, communication controls. Communication controls, when you're talking about line controls, flow controls, error controls, topology controls, right? Communication line control, component control, line error or flow error controls, and then we have topological controls, link controls, channel access, who can access the channel access control, and physical component controls, right? Line controls, flow controls, channel access controls, and of course lastly internetworking controls. So these are three basic controls, guys, on one side. Then we have processing controls, output controls, and of course database controls, right? Let's move on to processing controls. So for you I have processing controls, and in this case of processing controls we have run to run totals, which means pre-run and post-run we will check run to run totals. Then we have edit checks, right? Field interrogation, we have some of the points: reasonableness verification, field initialization, reasonableness verification. Field initialization is all about what? Setting everything to 0 before you start field initialization. Then exception reporting. Exception is something that goes wrong, exception reporting. And then towards the end for processing controls we do have something for existence or recovery controls. Up next is output controls. It's also important to decide whom to give the output, what output you're supposed to give. Storage controls, where you're supposed to store, how long you're supposed to store. Storage controls, logging, logging of output, whom you gave, what you gave. Logging is what? A chronological record of all the details, right? Then we have controls over printing. Controls over printing, you're not supposed to give everything to everybody. Report distribution. Report distribution. Then talk about retention controls. And again we're talking about recovery controls. That's what it is. And then last we have database control, that's about storage. Database controls, right? What are database controls? We have what in order they are saved: sequence check, and ensuring all records are processed. And lastly, it has the ability to process multiple files, process multiple transactions with single records. That's exactly what we have in terms of all the application controls, guys. So that's a big chart on what application controls is. You can run down, you can take a shot of that, and I think that's useful to you, just to quick memory of all the controls in one frame, right? And then of course, like I said in the last topic, we did discuss about, we do have ideas of virtualization, where we're talking about hardware virtualization, network virtualization, and storage virtualization. It's about partitioning and all that. Grid computing has a series of concepts. What is a grid? Grid is like several individual computers coming together and joined through a network to create a much powerful computer. And of course, cloud computing is server plus software plus storage over the internet and its advantages, right? That's it, guys. That's what I have for you on this particular topic of IT revision. So use this and memorize its the charts and techniques that have been used. Watch it as many number of times, so that before going to the exam it makes it easy. And after you finish your audit exam and come back that evening, I suggest you watch the IT videos, both part 1 and part 2. Of course, the link is also there for the strategic management video on this, right? So you watch it, subscribe to our channel tuition.in for more updates, and if there is something, I would let you know on that. I wish you all the best for the exams. Thank you. Hi guys, my name is Harish Krishnan, Chartered Accountant practicing in Hyderabad, and also a faculty for CA IPCC auditing and information technology and strategic management. And at CA final level, I also deal again with auditing and information systems control and audit. Alright, right now we're going to deal with IPCC subject, strategic management, worth 50 marks. Right, in this video, all that I'm going to do is cover all the 7 chapters as a quick revision. so that it is helpful for your exams. Let's do this in less than 45 minutes. Let's try and have a quick look at all the concepts that are there in the 7 chapters, right? I hope you understand the move of the strategic management right from top to bottom, right? It starts with understanding business environment. From there it goes up till reaching strategic edge. So on that note, let me start off with a quick idea on the chapter number 1, where you're talking about business environment. Business environment is a chapter that deals with what is business and what is the surrounding, and from there on it goes up till the 5 forces model of Michael Porter. So let me take you through the first concept that we're dealing as to business, right? What is business, right? We all know business is a state of being busy. Business is a state of being busy. It's one's occupation or a profession. We've seen that to be occupation or a profession. Then Peter Drucker's 2 conclusions about business are very important at this point, right? Business cannot be measured in terms of profit. Business can never be explained in terms of profit. At the same time, business is created and managed by people. Created and managed by people. These are the 2 conclusions that Peter Drucker put forth. Moving on are the objectives of business, right? Objectives of business: survival, stability, growth, efficiency, and profitability. These are the 5 basic objectives of business. Moving on, these are 2 concepts of business and business objectives. Then moving on, we're going to environment, where we're talking about what is environment, right? In this context, we will be talking about what is the business surrounding. Environment consists of 2 broad things, guys. One is internal, the other one is external. Internal environment has strengths and weaknesses. External environment has opportunities and threats. Strength is a favorable situation. That means it's an inherent capability to do something, while weakness is an inherent limitation. When you talk about opportunity, it's a favorable condition, and when you talk about a threat, that is an unfavorable condition. These are the 4 points that we need to understand. Then we have a topic which is talking about problems in understanding the environment, right? 3 problems, guys: complexity, uncertainty, and diversity. Diversity means too many number of factors. Complexity is just difficult to understand, and uncertainty means it keeps changing. To overcome these 3 problems, there's a framework. You can go through the framework. There are again 3 points: taking an initial view, doing the audit of environmental influences, and point number 3 talks about focusing explicitly on those which are going to influence us directly. That's the framework. Then the 4 characteristics which are very important. That could be a probable short answer question in the exam, right? Environment is complex, multi-phased, dynamic, and has a far-reaching impact. Far-reaching impact, this is what it is. Then we categorize environment into the external environment is classified. External environment is classified again into 2 broader circles, where there's a closer circle and then there's a broader circle, right? In the closer circle, we have immediate factors like competitors, customers and suppliers. Then we have competition in 3 forms: rivals, substitutes, and new entrants. These are people who can influence you very closely. Up next is about economy at large, right? We have economy at large to influence us. Then laws and regulations in a country will influence us. Demography and population can influence us. Societal values can influence us, and technology is also something that influences. So this is what the study of external environment is. And then relationship between firm and external environment is about 3 things. It's about exchange of 3 things: exchange of resources, exchange of information and exchange of influence and power. Right, so these are the basic concepts with respect to business, the objectives of business, environment, and the relationship that it shares. Up next, coming up, we have two topics to catch up with: micro environment and macro environment. Right, in micro and macro, we have several factors, and this has been one probable question in the exam which has come several times, guys. Micro and macro environment. So business environment is classified broadly into micro and of course macro environment. Micro has 6 factors. Let me give you a shortcut here. The word cosmic is my key term to remember the 6 micro factors. C for customers or consumers. O for organization, which has 3 things, right, which is the board of, which is owners, board of directors and employees. S for suppliers, M for market, and I for intermediaries, and the last C is for competitors. These are the 6 micro factors. Moving on to the other side, we are talking about macro factors. Then again we have a puzzle analysis to take care. So this time I am using the same thing. P for political, E for economic, S for socio-cultural, T for technology, and L for legal. So if you look at it, political and legal are situations which are together, and E for environment, where I am talking about 2 things here. One is the demographic environment. Demography, guys, this alone could be a separate short answer question, each one of these, right? In that, demography is very important. In demography, you have 4 points to cover up with, right? Population size, geographical distribution, ethnic mix, and income distribution. So these are the 4 points here. And then of course global environment is also part of the macro environment. So right now on screen you see cosmic, which is the 6, shortcut for 6 of the micro factors, while this is the macro setup. Right, the next concept that is in the first chapter is dealing with globalization. Right, we have 4 concepts in globalization, guys. Globalization talks about, so I'm going with globalization, very important concept, has come in the exam several times. Globalization first is talking about the definition of globalization, that is going beyond the boundaries of home country. That's globalization. Then 3 characteristics of a global company. 3 characteristics of the global company are, it has a common, 3 things in common: common strategy, common pool of resources, and common ownership. There are 3 things in common. Then 2 more concepts to catch up with are, why should we go for globalization? Why should we go for globalization? Right? 8 reasons are there on why you should go for globalization. Right? From rapid shrinking in distance and time, global technology, right, global infrastructure. So you have 8 reasons which you can catch up with globalization. And then the effects of globalization. What are the effects of globalization? There are 9 points. Let me give you a shortcut here. Peace film is a shortcut that I use to remember all the 9 points. P for privatization, I for interlinked and interdependent economies, interlinked and interdependent economies. 1E for entrepreneurship, and C for configuring anywhere in the world, configuring anywhere in world, and E for efficiency, and F for formation of regional blocks, I for infrastructure, then L for lower trade and tariff barriers, lower trade and tariff barriers, and M lastly for mobility of skilled resources, mobility of skilled resources. So guys, this, if it comes in the exam, you should make it very easy for you. This is a shortcut. Then coming up next is the strategic responses. Strategic responses to changes in the environment. Three responses that we have are least resistance, proceed with caution, and the third one is a dynamic response, which means least resistance is about going slow, proceed with caution is about watchful eye, watching very carefully and then going, and dynamic response is a very faster one, right? Then we have competition in cooperation, right? Competition, we have the next one, and then we also have a concept called cooperation in competition. How do we cooperate in competition? 4 ways are there here also, right? Forming small groups you form called cartels. Then you have same family business, co-branding and tie-up arrangements, and lastly kiretsus is something that is formed. Then the last concept in the first chapter is about the 5 forces model. Michael Porter's 5 forces model talks about a firm being influenced by buyers' bargaining power and suppliers' bargaining power, while the other 3 factors continue to remain the same from competition: rivals, substitutes, and new entrants. These are the 5 forces. Guys, please remember, buyers and suppliers are not the force. Buyers and suppliers are humans. Buyers' bargaining power and suppliers' bargaining power are the force. Alright, that's it. That's what we have in the very first chapter of strategic management, where we have discussed right from what is business to what are the 5 forces that influence a business. Moving on to chapter number 2. Chapter number 2 is a discussion on business policy and strategic management. In this chapter, we will be discussing about what business policy is, what management is, and what strategy is. Let me first introduce you to the 2 definitions that are very important. One is management, the other one is strategy. According to Peter Drucker, management is a function, a discipline, and a task to be done, and people who do it are called managers. So he phrases it out like this: management is a function, discipline, and a task to be done, while managers perform the function, practice the discipline, and discharge the task. That's his way of putting it up. Then Dalton McFarlane gave a very good definition for what management is all about, right? In his words, he says management is a process with a sequence of steps. Management is a process whereby managers create, direct, maintain, and operate a purposive organization. So you're creating, maintaining, and directing a purposive organization through systematic, coordinated, and cooperative human efforts. Those are the 2 definitions of management. Then there are 2 definitions of strategy as well. Strategy is a long-range blueprint of an organization's desired image, direction, and a destination. The other definition given by William F. Glueck for strategy is: strategy is a unified, comprehensive, and an integrated plan of action designed to achieve the basic objectives of business. Unified, comprehensive, and an integrated plan designed to achieve the vision. That is what, in his words, strategy is all about. So that is management and that is strategy, 2 key terms in your subject. Then we have one small and important concept called as corporate strategy. What is corporate strategy? Corporate strategy is talking about 5 things, and corporate strategy is the growth design of the firm. Let me quickly help you with corporate strategy. That could be a question in the exam. What does corporate strategy ensure? Guys, corporate strategy ensures growth of the firm. Right? We have 5 topics, 5 points to cover. Corporate strategy. Corporate strategy ensures what? Corporate strategy ensures growth of the firm. That's the first thing, growth. 2, it helps you fill strategic planning gap. It helps you fill the strategic planning gap. It provides relevant competitive advantages. When compared to the others, you have some kind of a advantage if you have a strategy. And then it provides a right fit, between firm and external environment, and then lastly, harness all the opportunities. Harness is to make the best use of. So this is what corporate strategy is all about. Corporate strategy ensures growth, fills the strategic planning gap, provides relevant competitive advantages, provides the right fit between firm and external environment, and harness all the opportunities. There's some characteristics of corporate strategy which I would also want you to go through once, because that is also kind of important. Moving on, up next, after the concept of corporate strategy comes in one of the most important topics in your syllabus, which is the definition of strategic management. What is the definition of strategic management, guys? Strategic management is a managerial process. Strategic management is a managerial process of creating vision, managerial process of creating vision, setting objectives, crafting a strategy, implementing that strategy, and take corrective actions whenever required, which is called as control. So control is about taking corrective actions. Strategic management is the managerial process of creating vision, setting objectives, crafting a strategy, implementing that strategy, and taking corrective actions whenever it is necessary. Guys, vision and objectives, once you create, that is a mind thing to do. And then afterward, before crafting the strategy, there's a lot of analysis that is required. So this is called as strategic analysis here. Crafting a strategy will involve crafting a business strategy. What business to do? This is about what. Then we are supposed to also craft a functional strategy on how to do. Right? What to do and how to do. Business strategy is dealt in your chapter 4. Functional strategy is dealt in chapter number 5, while strategic analysis is dealt in chapter number 3. And of course, implementation is dealt in implementation and control both are dealt in chapter number 6. Now I hope you're getting a meaning of reading the subjects in a particular way. Strategic management definition is what we are doing in this entire subject, because that's what strategic management is all about. A managerial process of creating vision, setting objectives, doing the analysis, based on that crafting strategies, implementing the strategy, and controlling that, right? So this is what your entire syllabus is all about. Moving up with the next concept in this strategic management content is the framework of strategic management, where we are raising 5 questions, right? Guys, one of the framework is one thing that can ask in the exam. Framework, 5 points. Where are we now, which is called beginning. Where we want to go is called the end. How do you get there? The various means, and evaluation of, that means the selecting the best one, and lastly taking corrective actions if at all you are not reaching. Where are we now? Where we want to go? How do we get there? Which way is the best? And how to ensure success by taking corrective actions is what is built in the framework. Then there is one very important short answer question, guys, which is called importance of strategic management. 5 points are there here, guys. Let me give you a quick insight of 5 points. In point number 1, I want you to remember only one word called proactive. It means importance of strategic management says it helps the firm to be more proactive. Then there are 2 points in the second one, which means it helps you to provide a good future for the firm. I want you to remember 2 words. Then in the third one is talking about corporate defense mechanism, right? It's a very good corporate defense mechanism. Then in point number 4, I want you to remember 4 words: provides framework for strategic planning, provides framework strategic planning. And point number 5, I want you to remember 5 words: core competencies and competitive advantages. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you got to remember this importance of strategic management. 1 word proactive, 2 word good future, 3 words corporate defense mechanism, 4 providing framework for strategic planning, and 5 core competencies and competitive advantages. That's what strategic management helps you with, right? So that is what it is. And then there is a strategic management model, which is again talking about the definition, but it introduces you to strategic analysis. We are doing 2 analysis about the internal environment and external environment, which we will be completing in the 3rd chapter. So right now we are talking about internal and external environmental analysis, right? Then topic number 14 in this particular series is about 3 key words: vision, which is a roadmap for company's future; Vision is what? Roadmap for company's future. Mission is about present business scope, while objectives are performance targets which are changeable, and goals are closed ended and they are precise in nature, means fixed. Objectives you can change guys, goals you can't change. And the last topic that we are dealing in this chapter is 3 levels of an organization. What are the 3 levels in an organization? The strategic level, the managerial level, and of course the operational level. So this is what you have in your second chapter guys, where we discussed about management's definition, strategy definition, and then corporate strategy as a concept, and then we have the definition of strategic management, framework of strategic management, importance of strategic management, and then strategic management model, where we talk about internal and external analysis. And 3 key terms: vision, mission, objectives and goals, and of course the last topic to be dealt with is the 3 levels in an organization. That's what we have in your second chapter. With the third chapter, this is dealing on strategic analysis. Pretty simple chapter guys. Chapter 3 is dealing with strategic analysis, where we have 2 parts to this, like 4 strategic analysis, right? First of which we'll be talking about a situational analysis. So strategic analysis is broken down into 4 analysis. It is not always important to analyze ourselves alone. It's also important to check our competitors sometimes, then our own strengths and weaknesses, and there comes a very important concept for multi-product businesses called the portfolio analysis, right? So in this context, in strategic analysis, we are first dealing with something called as a situation analysis. Situation analysis deals with a question called, where are we now? So it is discussing about the current scenario, where are we now? In answering this guys, let me give you a shortcut to remember here. I use the shortcut called PRO code, which is about the 5 situations that are considered in the situation analysis: product situation, competitors situation, opportunities and threats analysis, the distribution situation, and of course E for environmental analysis. So this is what we are going to understand in the present situation, answering a current question called, where are we now? This is about situation analysis, point number 1. Then the second point we're talking about is competitors analysis. We are now going to analyze competition and industry, right? Competition and industry are 2 very important things that we need to consider. 7 factors are there in competitor analysis. So along with me, if you're noting it down, you can note down. Point number 1 is about dominant economic features in the industry, nature and strength of competition, triggers of change, identifying the strongest and the weakest rivals, likely strategic move of the rivals. You always don't bother about yourself alone, you will also catch up with the likely strategic move of rivals. And then after doing these 5 steps in the competitor analysis, you will analyze what are the key factors for competitive success, or the key factors of competitive success. And 7th point talks about how attractive an industry is financially, and the growth prospects, right? Growth prospects. So this is what we have in competitor analysis. Then as you know, we have a SWOT and TOS analysis. SWOT talks about strength, weakness, opportunity and threat. Guys, SWOT, please remember, is only a comparative framework. SWOT is not a comparison. So whenever you want to do a comparison, Heinz Virich came up with a TOS analysis. What is a TOS matrix or a TOS analysis? TOS matrix talk about strength versus opportunity, right? It also talks about weakness to opportunity, strength to a threat, and weakness to a threat. TOS compares these factors. In SWOT analysis, you only plot them, but in TOS, you actually compare them, right? With which strengths you can grab what opportunities, because of what weaknesses you are losing out some opportunities, because of which strength a threat is not a threat anymore, and because of what weakness a threat is continuing to be dominant. These are something that you need to do in the TOS analysis. Of Of course, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat, a list of examples are given in your material. You can go through that as well. Then coming up to one of the most important, and ever since the concept has been introduced, a question has definitely come in the exam for portfolio analysis. Before even I deal portfolio analysis, there are 3 topics which exclusively are supposed to be understood for portfolio analysis, which is the concept of SBU, which is nothing but a key business. SBU is a key business. And then we have the concept of experience curve, whereby by repeatedly doing some work, the per unit cost definitely declines, is what an experience curve believes in. And then the concept of product life cycle. Guys, I hope everybody at this juncture revising this topic, product life cycle. You know that there are 4 stages in the product's life cycle. It goes up as an S-shaped curve: introduction, growth, and this peak point of saturation, which is maturity, and then the product starts declining, right? Introduction, growth, maturity, and decline being the 4 stages. Coming back to portfolio analysis, we have 4 theories in portfolio analysis. First of which is the Boston Consulting Group growth matrix. We were talking about 2 things: market on the vertical axis and market share on the x-axis. High market growth rate, market growth, high and low, market share, high and low. High to high are called as stars. Low to high will be called as cash cows, while a question mark is a situation even in a high growth rate market you're not able to grow, and low to low is classified as dogs, right, which are very low doing businesses. They also gave us 4 options of build, hold, harvest, and divest, right? So this is all about what a Boston Consulting Group matrix is. Then came up Igor Ansof's product growth matrix, where we talked about products, on the horizontal axis, and markets always on the vertical axis. Existing markets, new markets, existing products, new products, right? What are those called as? An existing to existing is called market penetration. Existing market into getting a new product is called product development. New market getting an existing product is called market development, and a new to new situation is called a diversification. Coming up next is Arthur D. Little's ADL matrix, where he categorized companies as dominant, strong, favorable, tenable, and weak, and product life cycle as embryonic, growth, maturity, and aging, and how companies function in all these are the points that we discussed in this. Then towards the end, lastly, there is GE model. Guys, the GE model talks about 2 situations: market attractiveness and business attractiveness. This time the BCG had only high and low. That was a problem, right? So that is where here we are talking about high, medium, and low, to high, medium, and low, with the same 4 options of build, hold, harvest, and divest, here called as invest, protect. So invest, protect, harvest, and divest continue to remain the 4 options. Now what to do in each of these situations is what we are looking at. In this situation of high to high, we will invest; high to medium, we will invest; and high to low, we will protect. Then in this case of medium to high, we will still go for investing. We will protect when it is medium to medium on a conservative note. Of course, it's not wrong to invest at this stage, but it's a conservative step that we take to protect ourselves, and medium to low is the right situation for you to slowly come out of the business, called harvest. Low to a high market is just to protect, and then low to a medium market is again, what did you do with medium to low? Harvest. So here also you go for harvest. And lastly, low to low is kind of a situation of a dog, low to low. So where we told that it will be divested, same here also you will go for divesting. So these are the 4 portfolio theories, guys: BCG, ANSO product growth matrix, ADL, and the GE model. That completes our 4 strategic analysis on situation analysis, competitor analysis, SWOT and TOS analysis, and portfolio analysis. This is our 3rd chapter. Are you clear on this point? Should I move on to the 4th chapter? Very good. The 4th chapter is now talking about strategic alternatives. What are the 4 strategic alternatives that are discussed in chapter number 4? First of which are the 4 strategies given by Glueck and Josh. Then we talk about the 3 strategies given by Michael Porter. Then we will be talking about an extension to that. There is a best cost provider strategy. And of course, the last one, the most important one would be what is called as grand strategies. Let's look at chapter number 4, guys, on a very quick note. In chapter number 4, there is also a discussion of the breakup of the definition of strategic management that I think is pretty simple: creating vision, setting objectives, crafting a strategy, implementing and executing, which I believe you can take care. Right, chapter number 4, I'm going with the strategic alternatives, guys, which is very important from the consideration of the exam. These alternatives here, first of which I'm talking about Glueck and Josh. William F. Glueck and Lawrence R. Josh, they came up with 4 fantastic strategies of stability, which means to remain same, no ambitions of growth or no doing any great investments, stay same, stability. Then talk about expansion. Then talk about stability, expansion. Then there is retrenchment, is to cut down. When you are not making good things in business, I think it's good to come out. And then there is something called combination. Combination is worked out in a multi-product business. How does combination work out in a multi-product business? In one place you will go for stability, in another you might want to expand, and in somewhere else you might want to retrench your product. Expansion in these people's note are by 2 ways. Expansion by way of diversification, and that is entering new markets with new products, and expansion by way of mergers and acquisition. That is the style of expansion discussed by Glueck and Josh. Michael Porter in the next lot comes up with 3 fantastic strategies. Michael Porter's strategies are also called as base generic strategies, in which he talks about cost leadership, which is what? Striving to be the lowest cost producer in the market. Then he talks about differentiation. So this talks about low cost. Then he talks about differentiation. Differentiation is that kind of a strategy where you want to develop unique products in the market which others don't have, so that you can charge a premium for that unique product. Uniqueness in the product will help you gain that little edge on premium. And then the last one is called a focus strategy. Focus is on what? A target niche. You have a segmented market which you are exclusively focusing on. This is niche marketing, like what luxury products do, like say Merck, BMW. All these companies target only the high net worth or high income group. So like that you have a target group. Now like say Junior Horlicks is focusing from kids from 0 to 3 years. Like say, so you exclusively have your target niche which is focus. Cost leadership, striving to be the low cost producer. Differentiation, being unique, and focus is to target on an exclusive group, are Michael Porter's 3 strategies. Apart from this, to continue this, there is also something called as best cost provider strategy. What is it called as? Best cost provider. Who is talking about value, guys? Value conscious. Here we are discussing the best cost provider about a value conscious buyer. So his idea is always on taste and preferences that suit him, and value, and most importantly affordability. So if you look at the table that is given down there, you will have still these 3 things, and of course the best cost provider to come in to talk about value consciousness. How important is value for him, right? He is ready to pay any amount, but he needs value in that. He is not talking about low cost, he is not talking about high cost. He is talking about the best cost. What do you mean by best cost? Whichever gives him that value, that will become the best cost. Last but the most important strategies of all are the grand strategies. Guys, grand strategies are further broken down into 4 actually: stability, expansion, retrenchment, and combination, right? Let me take a little space extra to discuss all those 4, because I hope you understood all these, right? Let's now go ahead with grand strategies. Grand strategies by its own has several subtopics which can be asked as separate questions. So let me discuss grand strategies in a little more detail. Grand strategies, we are talking about stability. Like guys, there's nothing much to discuss about stability, because stability is about staying same, status quo, maintaining the status quo, not challenging anything. No much investments, no big risks, right? So no investments, no risks. It's a very, very, very simple goal maintaining strategy. That's it. No big, doing of anything, spending money or shelling out something. But when it comes to expansion, this is the most important grand strategy, right? In Glueck and Josh, if you looked at it, their ways of expansion are 2 of those. What is that? Diversification and mergers and acquisition, right? Here also, the ways of expansion are intensification, and diversification. Right, intensification is further classified into 3 stages. I am drawing back your attention to Igor Ansov product growth matrix, which talked about market penetration, market development and product development. If you do any of these 3, it is called intensification. When you talk about diversify, it is going new to new, right? In terms of diversification, we have 4 diversification. Vertical diversification, that means getting into the same business at a high scale or acquiring a smaller business. Horizontal diversification, where you are actually going to acquire maybe like something like a byproduct or a complementary product, you are entering into those businesses. Then comes concentric diversification. What is concentric diversification, guys? Is about same technology or same process or technology. And the last one is about conglomerate, where there is no linkage existing, no link between your existing products and new products, absolutely completely new business you are diversifying into, right? That's about the expansion strategy in terms of grand strategies. And the third strategy is about retrenching, where again you have 3 alternatives. One talking about turnaround. What's a turnaround strategy, guys? Turnaround is giving one last chance, and in this concept I want you to I want you to tell that indicators of turnaround is an important concept, and the 10 aspects of turnaround. 10 aspects of turnaround. These are 2 concepts in this. I want you guys to go through with it. And then after turnaround, there's something called as divestment. What is divestment, guys? Divestment is all about selling a portion of business, not the whole one, selling a portion of business. And then we have the last one to come up with, which is called as liquidation. Liquidation is a last strategy. That's because no businessman wants to kill his own business. Liquidation is about selling the total business, So there's nothing that you're looking out for anymore. It's completely gone, right? So guys, turnaround. If it's not working out, divest, that sell the portion of the business. If that's also not working out, sell the whole business, right? So this is what we have in your chapter number 4, where we have dealt about all the strategic alternatives, which means all the business strategies that you can adopt, right? We will catch up with chapter number 5. In chapter number 5, we will be dealing with all the 5 functional strategies plus an R&D strategy. So the 6 strategies in functional areas is what we are going to deal next in the chapter number 5. Right, in chapter number 5, we are discussing about the various functional strategies. So functional strategies, guys, how many functions we have in business? Right, we have 5 functions plus R&D to be the 6th one. So marketing being the first one, marketing, finance, HR strategy, then there is a small one called production strategy, right? Then you also have finance, marketing, HR, production, then supply chain management, or this is something to do with inventory. And then lastly, but most important one is R&D. Since this is an optional one, because most people do, most people don't do it, some people do it, some people not. Okay, let's see what are the functional strategies dealing up with. Guys, in marketing, we will deal with delivering value to the customer. Delivering value to customer. That's the most important part of marketing. In the same thing, we will be dealing with something called as marketing mix. Remember what is marketing mix? Marketing mix talks about the 4 P's, right? Product, price, place and promotion, right? With the latest addition, we have the 3 additional P's, right? That is about people, physical evidence and process. This is also very important to understand. They've been asking questions from these 4 P's, and 3 P's was a separate question as recently as a couple of attempts back. Then moving on, the last things are the 14 different forms of marketing, guys, right? Augmented marketing, synchro marketing, place marketing, person marketing, demarketing. There are different forms, 14 different forms are there. I want you to go through all those 14 because right now there's no point going through, they're all one-liners. And then relationship marketing, demarketing, synchro marketing, social marketing, tourism marketing, person marketing. So there is all that stuff in that, and 1 or 2 questions are always have been asked from the types of marketing. Coming to finance, there are 4 very important points on how to raise capital, how to raise funds, how to raise funds. That's the first thing that you need to check in finance. Then it is about budgets or projected financial statements. Then it is about management and use of funds. These 3 important steps. And the 4th is the most important thing and the most asked question in the exam: evaluating the worth of a business. Evaluating worth of business, which is again a very important consideration, guys. 4 points are there in evaluating, 3 points are there, 5 approaches. Evaluating the worth of a business. The first one is net worth method, which means stockholders equity, net worth method. Second one, price of the company is equal to 5 times of profit of the current year, profit of current year, or you can use average profit of 5 years also. Then we have 3 more approaches, which is price of similar company, price of a similar company, that is also one approach. Then we have the PE ratio method, right? PE multiple, you will get it by dividing MPS by EPS. And then once the PE is ready, once your PE is ready, average profit of 5 years into PE is what. And then the next one is outstanding shares method, which is nothing but business value is equal to number of shares into price of share plus premium per share. That's how you go with the 5 methods. A very important 4 marks question from this chapter that has come so many times. Then production strategy is a very simple one. There are only 2 points on what the production system should be and how it is to be operated. HR strategy has a very important question called as the role of HR manager. What is the role of a HR manager? There are 7 points in the role of HR manager. That is about building core competency, creating competitive advantage, creating a healthy environment for work conditions, and then the role of HR manager also is about making sure that the organization achieves certain unique capabilities by doing all this, and exercising ethics leadership will be the last role of the HR manager. Then moving up with supply chain management, guys. Supply chain management is talking about 2 things here, right? We have logistics and we have supply chain management. It's all about movement and storage of goods, right? And the 7 steps in supply chain management, right, from procurement, manufacturing, and then distribution, outsourcing, marketing, sales, services, and performance measurement. So 7 points you need to focus on supply chain management. And lastly, in R&D, we have 3 strategies in R&D, right? Either you be the first firm to do it, second one is about imitation, intelligent imitation, that is copy a firm that is successful, and third one is mass production. So this is all about what you have in your 5th chapter, 5 theories on finance, marketing, HR, production, supply chain management, and R&D. Of course, in R&D, guys, there is a comparison of whether you are supposed to do R&D or not do R&D, in-house or out-house, right? We've got a couple of, let me give you a table. I think that will be very useful for you. You know, it's based on technology and market growth, technology, market growth, doing R&D, and strategy, whether you have to do it here or not. And if the technology growth is fast, the technology, let's say technology growth is slow, market growth rate is moderate, R&D will be a yes, and you have ample amount of time, so you can do it in-house. Then if the technology growth is fast, guys, when the technology growth is fast, doing R&D is not an ideal thing, because by the time you develop, at the end of it, you will develop an outdated product. So irrespective of whether the market is slow or whatever it is, it's not a good time to do R&D, so I won't do R&D. Then if the technological progress is slow, but the market growth rate is fast, I think this is a time where you can do R&D, but since market growth rate is fast, you need results also quick. So you might as well go for outsourcing. And in the fourth case, where both are fast, it is not at all an ideal situation to do R&D. So therefore, acquire a business which has already done the R&D. That's it. That's what are some things. So you can take a frame of this. This is what your fifth chapter is all about on functional strategies. Let me move on to topic number 6, that is chapter number 6, where we will be dealing about various points that are meant for implementation. Straight away guys, I'm going with implementation structures, then I will deal value chain analysis quickly, then we will talk about the leadership, strategic change and strategic control. Let me put up all the topics that I'm going to discuss in chapter number 6. Chapter 6, I'm going to take you through the structures. How many structures are there guys? The 6 structures. First one is functional, then we have divisional structure, then we have an SBU structure, and after all we have one of the very important structures called the matrix structure, and then there is something called as network structure. The latest to add up to this list is called the hourglass structure, which is a little wider in the top, narrow in the middle, and again wider in the bottom, right? It goes like this, an hourglass structure. Very less top management, and even more lesser middle management, and a higher level, higher staff at the lower level, hourglass structure. These are the various structures, and this is a very important piece of this topic. You got to learn it. And then there are 3 very important topics on what are SBUs, how to build core competencies. You want to understand this, and more importantly, Michael Porter's value chain analysis, right? Value chain analysis classifies into primary activities and support activities. Primary activities are inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, right? Marketing and sales and services. While support activities are infrastructure, procurement, human resources, and of course technology. Guys, Michael Porter's value chain is a very important topic. I want everybody to focus on that. And then there is an important topic here again called managing linkages, how to manage linkages. Then comes the concept of leadership. One of the very important questions in leadership is the types of leadership. 2 types of leadership are there, which are the most asked questions on this topic. Transformational leadership style, transformation in leadership, and a transactional leadership style is something to do with leadership. Say transaction and transformation. Here it's all about motivation, and here it is all about exchange of rewards. Exchange of rewards. Alright, moving up to the next concept is called strategic change. How do you drive change? Guys, change can't come in a one go. So therefore, definitely takes time, considerable effort and all that. So therefore, it is very important that we manage a strategic change. Under strategic change, there is Kurt Levin's change process, which is very important. Kurt Levin change process talks about unfreezing the situation, changing the situation, and refreezing the situation, which is very important again. Unfreezing, changing and refreezing, one of the very important topics, Kurt Levin change process. And the last topic to deal in this chapter is about strategic control. We have at all levels operational, control topic, right? We have operational control, managerial control, and we also have strategic control. Guys, the term strategic control is further broken down here into 4 parts, where you're talking about premise control, and of course I'm running short of space, so I'm just talking about those. Premise control, there are 4 subtopics in strategic control that alone could be a separate question again. And then sometimes they will leave everything from here and they'll ask you one concept towards the end. What is the importance of culture? Culture and strategy connection, right? Is culture a valuable ally or is culture a hindrance? How is it? Culture should always be in alignment with the strategy and all that stuff is what we are looking at in this particular thing. I think it's a very interesting chapter to bring around. I summed it up very quickly and very easily, but I want everybody to go through this chapter in a greater detail because there's immense amount of content that we can't probably sum it up in such quick time. But I think that's a broad picture of what you have in chapter number 6, and I don't want you to miss any of these concepts. This one day before the exam, if you're just looking at this and tomorrow is your exam, I think this should give you a complete idea of what we have and what we are not supposed to miss. Culture and strategy, guys, is one such topic which often comes in the exam to again surprise you suddenly. Let's move to the last chapter in the syllabus, guys, where we will be talking about 4 fantastic techniques on how you can change your business from a normal one to an exceedingly doing well business. That is chapter number 7, bringing you or taking you to a reaching strategic edge. Chapter number 7 dealing up with a reaching strategic edge. The first of those is BPR, that is business process re-engineering, right? Under business process re-engineering, what is it? Business process re-engineering is about 3 things: fundamental redesign, fundamental rethinking, radical redesign, and of course dramatic improvement. So this is what BPR is all about: fundamental rethinking, radical redesign, and how you go about getting the BPR done. Is IT involvement important in BPR? What are the success factors in BPR? And there's a 5-step BPR process which I would like you to go through. And then there's a concept in BPR where you're talking about restructuring versus re-engineering. Guys, the structure that I discussed in the previous segment, that versus the re-engineering. Re-engineering is changing all the process. Restructuring is only making some structural changes. So there's a huge difference between both those, and there are also some downsides of the concept of BPR. You might as well want to consider that. Then moving up next is a concept called benchmarking. What is benchmarking? A process of setting up benchmark, which is nothing but a standard. Benchmark is a standard or a point of reference. Standard or a point of reference. Then there are 6 steps in discussing about what benchmark is all about. It's very simple. First, identify the need for a benchmark. 2, study existing process. Study existing. 3, understand best business process. Understand the best. So 2 and 3 you compare. Compare existing versus best. Prepare gap report. What is the difference between best and yours? Prepare a gap report. And then lastly, you can go for implementation of that, whatever is the thing, right? This is about benchmarking. Coming up next is a concept on total quality management. What are you going to do with total quality management? TQM. Guys, total quality management has 14 steps in total quality management. You can just run through that. There have been hardly any questions in the exam from those 14 steps, but there can be a question in the exam which talks about the difference between traditional management and TQM. What is the difference in operating traditional management and TQM? It could be a very important question. So these are the 2 concepts that are there in TQM. And lastly, you have a concept called 6 Sigma, where a very important question is about going up implementation of 6 Sigma to existing products and to new products. You know the technique, I believe. Existing products, it's what? DMAIC. Define, measure, analyze, improve and control. The word improve because already the process is existing and then taking care. New product is about DMADV. D for design and V for verify. Since it is not there, design it now and go for verification, right? This is the important question in 6 Sigma, very important. How is 6 Sigma implemented for new products and existing products? And then there are 6 themes of 6 Sigma. 6 themes of 6 Sigma, which I would again like you to go through because that's also a very important answer, like focusing, genuine focus on the customer, data and fact driven management. To the 6th one where there is striving for perfection and your ability to tolerate failures, which is one of the very good life principles also. Always try and strive for perfection. You will meet a lot of failures in between, tolerate all of them and go in. Sometimes they leave all these concepts and they will come to some contemporary issues like connection between strategic management and e-commerce. You can read that. And there's one of the very frequently asked questions that is a strategic management necessary in non-profit organizations? Is strategic management necessary in non-profit organizations? The answer is a yes. In educational institutions, the answer is a yes. In medical organizations, the answer is a yes. And in governmental organizations also, the answer is a yes. So, do you need strategic management? If they ask you in any of these, you might as well want to concentrate on all of that. That's it, guys. That's what we have in the 7th chapter also. BPR, benchmarking, TQM, Six Sigma, and the contemporary issues. Guys, always focus one thing when it comes to the exam. You always have to remember that your answers should be the best, right? When you have to write best answers, it's all about answering, with conviction, and with the way you write should impress the examiner, right? For which you need to remember a lot of things. So this video is a quick attempt to run through the entire syllabus in less than 1 hour, so that you have a complete understanding of what you're doing, right? That's it. That's what I have for you in these 7 chapters. I hope this was pretty useful to you, and if it is useful, like it, share it, and of course subscribe to our channel called tuition.in. and in case you have any doubts or queries or you want more information about it, you can leave comments below this video. Thank you guys, and wish you all the best.